Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this special edition of Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and we're broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In today's edition, we're going to be discussing a very important topic. Few weeks ago, I got a very interesting question. I was asked, Dennis, is peace possible for Liberia? I said, why do you ask? He said, well, if you look at how each group is defending their own warlord or their own hero, and although the hero has hurt other people, I don't think we're going to attain peace. I say, well, I'm going to call the people who know a thing or two about peace in Liberia and transitional justice for us to discuss this. So we want to welcome all of you from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia, and is peace possible for Liberia? My guest is former TRC Commissioner Massa Emilio Washington, who is joining me from Philadelphia. Massa, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you, Dennis. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
Next, joining us from Northern Ireland, and she always correct me on this thing because I always get it wrong, is Tenen Dalieh, who is studying transitional justice on a PhD level. Tenen, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you so kindly, Mr. Jazz. So that's the Republic of Ireland.
All right.
And it's Dublin City University.
Thank you. Also joining us in a minute is another transitional justice. Sometimes you call them expert. They will say, oh no, Mr. Jai, I'm not expert yet. But Aaron is going to be joining us in a minute so that we can discuss this. But I want to say again, welcome to Focus on Liberia, Massa and Tenen. It is my pleasure to have you both. Let me go back and start with. Let me go and start with 1980. 1980, we woke up to a bloody coup that overthrew President William R. Talbot. He was killed, and days after, 13 men from his government were also killed in what many thought was a kangaroo court. We had other upheaval since that time. And I'm not trying to imply that before 1980 there was nothing bad that happened to the country. I'm just putting a marker at 1980. There was a 1985 invasion, which saw the loss of life of many lives of Liberians. And then there was the 1989 war started in northern Liberia on the border of Nimba County. The war has since ceased 2003, but we still have some things or the aftermath of the war continue to haunt us. So, do we have peace? Is there peace in Liberia? What is peace? And all the 9 yards, and can we attain peace? Let me start by giving first the opening statement to Massa Washington. Say, Massa, the whole question of is there peace? Will peace be possible for Liberia? Does that question make sense to you? What do you make of it?
Actually, it is a really good question to be asking at this time, but then also to be discussing and debating at this time, because it is only someone first once said, war is Georgia is better than war. Georgia meaning that the more people talk, the more they discuss, the more they have questions, the more they think deeply, the more they deconstruct issues, then they can together hopefully find solutions to those pressing issues that plague the nation. So obviously, it's better to always dialogue all the time. Yes, I think peace is attainable. I think it's possible, but genuine peace, I think, it is attainable, but the stairways, like I would like to call it, the stairways to genuine peace in Liberia is littered, Dennis and Tenen, with, all sort of unnecessary obstacles. Influence, I would say. There are several reasons why, but for me, one of the cardinal reasons is that this stairway to peace is being hijacked by obstacles that have been thrown in the way of the quest for peace by selfish individuals of several different categories, many of whom are our leaders thus creating this unwarranted, insurmountable challenge, towards our goal for peace. So yes, I truly believe that peace is attainable, and all those different scenario of conflict era in Liberia that you just reminded us of. First, I would like to make a full disclosure. I tend to be biased sometimes because I'm completely non-violent. I can't stand violence of any type. So when it comes to violence, I tend to be really, a sucker there. So any violent era for me is a no-no. So I may see things, or I may see things from that standpoint because of my standpoint of non-violence. I can't stand violence at all, no matter what time, what era, who people, what happened. I can't stand violence. So I just wanted to make that full disclosure. But I think peace is attainable for Liberia. But unfortunately for us, I think all of the attempts at peace, especially following violent conflict in the past before we came to the TRC, were not really, really genuine because people didn't follow through. People didn't follow through with mechanisms and instruments that they should have used to help to consolidate any peace, any peace process. So that's why we are where we are. So basically, it's been hijacked.
Thank you, and we'll go into it. Let me go to Tenen. Tenen, someone watching us here would say, but what they're talking about, peace. We have peace. So I want you to tell me, what is peace, and do we have it in Liberia?
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Ja. We'll start off first with the definition to just put into perspective what we were talking about, and then move along the line. So the Oxford Dictionary defines peace from anxiety, disturbance, emotional, mental, or spiritual, or inner conflict, calm, and tranquility. At the global level, the UN peace as dignity, well-being for all, and not just the absence of war or from war. So, what is peace? Within the context of Liberia at the moment, if you're taking the literal meaning from Oxford Dictionary, do we have peace? I would say yes, we have peace because, yes, in some instances, um, there's freedom from anxiety. In some instances, we have um, religious tolerance. That's in quote. In some areas, we have calm. Um, yes, so this instances of peace. If you're furthering the question within the context, you gave a background that the question was out of a place, there was an inquiry, so it was out of a place. So if we move towards that place of inquiring, if we will genuinely have peace, then the conversation would be stretched further, right, into a more technical and theoretical landscape to kind of examine, are we there? And if you're taking that theoretical landscape, then you want to kind of study, Maslow's hierarchy. It is, a practical and theoretical tool in understanding, what then is peace. So there are different stages, within the pyramid. At the bottom there, big social services, within the context of where we are as a country, as in Liberia, we're really still very there, much there, So we'll it can be argued. Yeah. So I'll stay there and we can further the conversation in a more detailed way. But yes, if it's just from the literal meaning of what peace is, there can be arguments that we do have peace in Liberia. We do have, we've had peace at least for the last 10, 15 years moving forward. Yeah. But in a more course setting, what then is that peace?
Exactly. And we've heard many times that peace is not the absence of war. So, are we at peace with each other? Have we reconciled? How are we? Do we let go the past and then ready to move forward? Are we living, or do we have, and as you said, we can go in all direction of peace. Some even say there is no economic peace. So let me come back to you, Washington, Miss Massa Washington, to further define peace. What is peace, and how do Liberians perceive peace? How do they look at peace?
Right. Okay. So I will first define peace in my own context, and then also based upon the research and the literature, and then I come down to how I'm thinking Liberians are defining peace. There's several definitions out there, scholarly definitions about peace or what peace should look like. But I borrow from two world-renowned scholars, and then I added my own twist. For example, world-renowned physicist Albert Einstein described peace as peace is not merely the absence of war, but the presence of justice, of law, and of order. And then I will add of good governance as well. And then Cicero, the great philosopher Cicero, described peace very succinctly. Peace is liberty in tranquility. Tenen spoke about tranquility when she was giving her own definition of peace. So for me, the way I think as a Liberian, the way I'm thinking Liberians will describe peace will be the absence of threat to the life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and the ability to acquire property to live in peace. So if you're looking at peace, if you are going to equate peace based upon these definitions that I've just given, then we will say, no, we don't really have peace. What we have is actually a semblance of peace. It's not really peace. Because all around us, what we have right now is a semblance of peace. Yes, the guns are silenced, but are the guns really silenced? So if you were to deconstruct this peace that we have now, you will see that it's all it's very fluid, it's cosmetic, because this peace is shaking. I mean, look at the gross violations of human rights that are taking place every day all over the place. People still have guns. The armed robbers is still on the rise. People are abusing the rights of other people. You can't sleep in peace. You worry to send your kids to school because someone may abduct your kids. Someone may molest your underage child. A 3-year-old child about 3 weeks ago was violently raped. A young boy's tongue was cut because he was sodomized, and his abuser thought that if he cut his tongue, he would silence him forever. And look at this. You mentioned, Dennis, that someone said they have no economic peace. We know very well that economic violation is a catalyst for crimes, including war crimes. So when people are deprived of the ability to feed themselves, to send their kids to school, when a father wakes up in the morning and he goes on his hustle all day and he comes back and he still cannot feed his 6 children, when children are dying from malnutrition. So those are all, I like to deconstruct things. For me, I see peace as the whole set. And all these other things we're talking about, they're all elements and all subsets of that whole set. So for me, as far as I'm concerned, when I speak to a lot of Liberians on the ground, they say, sister, the peace here, we just holding it. It means that it's shaky. It's not it's not solid. You can see all the elements to support that that analysis or that thinking. So the peace we have now is not genuine peace, because we are not addressing peace holistically. We're just looking at, why the guns are silent. Like, for example, the Solicitor General of Liberia said a couple of months ago there would be no implementation of the TRSC. There would be no war crimes code until we have complete peace. So I was like, what? It's kind of confusing. There would be no implementation of the TRSC report calling for recommendations calling for a war crimes code until we have full peace. How is that? But we can discuss it, later on as we move on.
So because before I go to Tenen, I know Tenen want to also throw more on the definition of peace. What you have described to me is only possible in heaven.
No, 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 no. We are not seeking a utopia state here. We know
Okay.
utopia doesn't exist. It's an imaginary land. We know it doesn't exist. And none of us have been to heaven and back. So again, we can also argue that as well. There is nowhere on our earth that is completely 100% without its own, problems and challenges. But when you look at what we have in Liberia now, I mean, is the environment enabling? Does it support the self-determination of the individual? Do we have equal opportunity for at least the majority of the people? Where is the middle class? Where is the middle class? uh, have we done an extensive survey to find out how many Liberian kids wake up in the morning hungry and they will still go to bed hungry? I know of a family once that said to me, uh, they didn't have food to feed the kids one time, so they just waited. They had some tea, Lipton tea, and they waited all day. Around 3 o'clock, they boiled a big iron pot on the wood stove, and they boiled the tea and gave everybody a cup of tea so that at least for the gas. This is in this present day Liberia. So when you have all of these portion of things that are supposed to consolidate the peace, that are supposed to make the peace real, when you have the absence, what it does is that it creates the environment to ferment conflict. It's a form of conflict mapping. If we really want to do that, we can use a scenario that's ongoing in Liberia as a form of conflict mapping. What creates conflict? Why is this piece shaking? So we're not looking for a utopia, an imaginary or heaven. We're just simply saying there's more that we can do as a society to make the peace more, solid, to make it come together much better for everybody. And we are not doing that as a people.
Thank you. Let me go to Tenen to same question. If you have anything else to say before I even ask my question, Tenen, in regards to the definition of peace, and if because there are other countries we have conflict, we have issues, do we say those countries too don't have peace? Your response.
I mean, just following up with Madam Washington, there's no society without its own criticisms, society with own issues. However, within the context of what we're here to discuss, and peace, moving towards transitional justice and all of it, we're in a precarious situation where, not trying to use words loosely, but we're in a police state, and so yes, that, trying to use the word peace can, would be put into a broader context. And I would say we're not there yet. We're still far from there. We have a lot to do as a people. Yeah, I need to hold it there, and then we can move into the conversation. Yeah.
All right. Let me see if Aaron is ready now. Aaron, you can turn off your video and let's see whether that will work. You can turn off your video and you can be on audio only and see if that will work. So the basis of the discussion is the question I was asked was in reference to the warlords or former warlords in Liberia, that these people still hold a sway over their people, and what we see is there is much loyalty to them, so that when you talk about war crimes court, people that defend them, people that are who these people for whom these people were heroes and heroines, these people will not let go. So the context in which I was asked the question was: is peace possible for Liberia if everybody is still holding to their own warlord and try to defend and protect them? If we are electing warlords and those that cause so much harm on the people, if these people are still our bosses, and in other instances, they are the one we look up to for direction, and then these people hurt other people. So if warlord X hurt a certain population, that population is still bitter. So can we have peace within that context? So Aaron, are you there? I still want to see if Aaron, are you there? Right, okay. So let me call some names here. We have Senator Prince Johnson, who was mentioned in the TRC report for gross human rights violation. For a couple of election cycles now, he's been the kingmaker in these elections. And wherever he goes, so is Nimba County. We also see that former warlord George Bole has been elected by his people. Another instance is the late Alhaji Kruman. You couldn't touch him. There's a population behind him that will justify whatever he did. So within that context, first of all, let's look at reconciliation and peace. How are they related and how are they different? Let me go back to Tenen. Because it looked like maybe I'm trying to confuse the two that, hey, we can have peace without reconciliation. Is that possible? Tenen, back to you.
Yeah, so first, I think we have to put the conversation in a context, right? And this context here is, as a post-conflict state, is genuine peace and reconciliation possible, in the absence of addressing historical wrongs and human rights abuses committed, during the conflict. And if it is within this context, definitely peace is not possible, because there has never been any society that's strived or that's moved forward with democratization, with economic development, economic justice, as Madam Washington mentioned, without addressing historical wrongs, without addressing human rights abuses. There has never been. So this leads us to where you are, mentioning the fact that people are still very much actors of the warlord is still very much visible in our political governance. And I say it's not, we keep using this word loosely, they're popular, and that, people are loyal. People are not loyal. People's livelihoods are dependent on these people. So, survival tactics, at the beginning of this, I mentioned, Maslow hierarchy of needs. If my survival depends on Dennis, I definitely will, be as much as reasonable as I can be with Dennis. That's not loyalty. So it is mistaken. The state has not done anything to address, the inequality that's been witnessed in our state. Access to basic social services. We're not even going to, say the second level of the second within using the Maslow hierarchy of needs. The physiological needs at the bare bottom: water, food, shelter. As a state, we've not done anything. We've not addressed that. Madam Washington gave a practical example of just still needing tea for food. Substituting tea for food. Safety needs, which would be the next level of it. We are not there yet. Our children are still vulnerable, women and girls. Safe spaces, at the university level, there are allegations of rape, sexual exploitation, and abuse. The state continues to allow this to happen, and courtesy to the people we have at our governance level. So people are not loyal. People are surviving. People are making it strong to remain alive. So if there is a person who provides that, people are going to just remain there. If people have alternatives, definitely people would make reasonable choices, than voting someone who claims that I am in this position for your safety. So you get the framing. I'm in this position for your framing. I'm in this position to provide food and safety. I am in this position, to provide education. This, instead of having the state provide the infrastructure, the logistics, and everything for education, we're reliant on someone with a war record to provide for our people. How do you provide an option, for people to have this education? So again, we be able to frame the conversation in a way that we are not, again, overly emphasizing or giving more power to these people who are already using the vulnerability and the lapses within our governance system.
And Tenen, let me come in there, because it's like the chicken or egg kind of situation, right? Because I don't think these people had nothing at the time that they were elected. Take, for instance, George Bulley in Grand Jude. People actually see them as their savior. People are still, people from Nimba that you talk to, they will still see that Prince Johnson, in fact, saved Nimba County, and as a payback, they are rewarding him with their loyalty. You disagree that it's not loyalty, it's survival tactics. I want to disagree with that. Is people are genuinely loyal to these people, that they brought them, they liberated them, and so they are rewarding them with their vote. And not just that, whoever, for 3 election cycles, the people Prince Johnson said Nimba County should vote for, they voted for them in their numbers.
Mr. John, okay, let me come in right there, and Madam Washington can come in later. I've worked in communities in Nimba County and equally with communities in Grand Jude, and based on my experience, I tell you for a fact, if people had alternatives, they would opt for those opportunities. But this is a bigger conversation within the context of how some of the lapses within our transitional justice process, beginning with the Accra Peace Agreement. So these people were able to control the power in a way that the power sharing, favored them. So they were placed in political positions, they were placed in legislative positions, they were positions, judicial positions, like at the helm of the judiciary. That led us into our post-conflict democratization period. At the helm of the Supreme Court, we had someone who was at the peace agreement and signed on behalf of a warring faction. Now you are saying to me that as you have some credibility and as you have some confidence in the justice system and take someone who supports that person, definitely it's not possible. So you are seeing the contradictions. Now, if at the head of governance, we keep, empowering these people, you leave the people in the communities without any options. We've emphasized over and over with community justice mechanisms, right, where people, the communities themselves at the palaver level should have discussion. That was also manipulated. So at the central level, you call and you have this person who will micromanage the conversation, right? And you're like, oh, these are my people who should be, available at these meetings. Then I go to those meetings and I'm aware that this person named in the TRC report as bearing the greatest burden of the war, has got his people there who are also managing this process. Definitely, I will give you what you want. So we cannot, it's this. People say the low-hanging fruits, right? So you think that the people at the community should be the ones who should reject the people, when at the national level and in those different diplomatic positionings, we keep empowering these people. And I'll conclude on this. I remember it was like 10 years concluding where we had peace. President Sirleaf, and I'm sorry, I have to be this. President Sirleaf had an honorary ceremony where she certificated Yaya Nimle, she certificated the Prince Johnson and several other people for helping to maintain the peace. Now, what is the message are you conveying to people at the community level? Definitely for the next 20 years, we will elect those people, because the message is these are the custodians of our peace. So we have to keep them there. These are the custodians of the country's stability. To remove them is to threaten, is to throw us back, is to make the state vulnerable.
What a way to get peace. Massa, you wanted to come in because I have a different question. So go ahead. You can come in. Hold on 1 second. Aaron, are you there? If you can say something. Aaron, you are in the Republic of Ireland, so I expect your internet is like you're in Bannersville. What happened, my man? But anyway, Massa, go ahead.
I completely agree with all those salient points that Tenen has just made. But also, sometimes people get frustrated with the total absence of genuine efforts towards the peace. And then sometimes the frustration is directed at several different institutions and people. And of course, the TRC gets its full share of the frustration and disappointment. Like a lot of people, sometimes they see you like, the TRC was supposed to bring peace. You didn't bring peace, you failed. And I take my time, education. I take my time and I say to them, yes, the TRC was charged with the responsibility to help bring the peace, meaning that we were supposed to put in the blueprint, the framework, and the mechanism, the strategy for which we will all work together to attain this peace. So it was not our sole responsibility as TRC commissioners or the TRC to bring the peace. It's impossible for one institution, one group of people, or even individual to bring the peace. I tell them this has to be a concerted effort by everybody, spearheaded by our government and governance structure. So whereas, and I think one of the reasons too is that people misinterpret the role in the society. The Liberian people, I see that they are more politically in tune. When I say in tune, they follow politics more. They are more into the politicking aspect of it. I don't know how our society just became so, political like that people don't even focus on economic issues of civil rights and human rights and all of that. Politics is a thing. But my thing is, how much do people understand that peace attainment, peacekeeping is also their responsibility? So here the TRC was, we did this work, we did this volume of work, as imperfect as the process was, and I say it all the time, but what we were asked to do, we did. At the end of the day, we were supposed to make recommendations that will address, all these different things, and we have done. We have made those recommendations. So technically, we did our job. Now people can argue the processes or whatsoever, but it's just water under the bridge. Did we produce a final report based upon our processes? Yes. And we imagine it was the recommendations, I think, are 207 or 208 recommendations at the end of the day. Recommendations for how to, address economic issues, human rights, and even psychological, support for people, all of those. And it's been completely hijacked. Nothing happens. But then the ordinary man, we are the things that when it comes to important things, we leave it, like Tenen said, these people who are actually should not be controlling anything, who should not be supervising, overseeing anything, because, they bear the greatest responsibility for our problems. They are our leaders. And I think our ordinary people, when I was a kid growing up, when we used to go to Bomi County, we saw how our people, they respect authority. So like Tenen said, if these people are the authority that, we are giving our people are going to respect them. Our people are generally law-abiding. I mean, Dennis, up country, when you and somebody start arguing, you just tell the person, I'm going to call the police, or I'm going to bring the lawyer, or I'm going to the justice of the peace, or I'm going to call the governor. So our people will respect authority. And if these people are the ones who are the authority that we have given our people, then guess what? They will support them. But I also believe that our people have become reliant upon them too. I think it's more of a psychological thing. Like, it's an attachment theory in psychology. People sometimes become attached to their victims. Again, it boils down to survival. These are the people who we have. These are the people that the country keep giving us over and over in every election, in every turnover of government. It look, and then the ordinary men who do not have our sophistication, they're not really educated to understand all this manipulation. They kind of think, but you know what? These are the people that the people want us to work with, so we will work with them. And then ethnicity and all these things come to play as well. Liberia is a deeply polarized nation on the basis of ethnicity and everything, ethnicity, class, everything. So what we need to do is education. We need to keep educating our people that, look, you are also responsible for this peace process. You are also responsible for the kind of nation that you want to live in, a nation that will provide you opportunity, where you will not be targeted on the basis of your ethnicity, where your children will feel safe, creating a safe space for you and your family. We have to educate our people that is also their business. Because I'll tell you straight, they really think that when it comes to peace and all these other or soft but extremely important national issues, they think that it is the business of other people. Oh, the TRC will so to bring peace. Oh, Dennis Tenen doing transitional justice. They're supposed they're responsible for proper government structure and all that kind of stuff. We have to keep educating our people and let them know, no, you are also responsible for this peace. And and you are responsible for the people you vote in office. So if you vote them in office, and they completely ignore all these important things that will protect you, then you also share of some of the responsibility like all of us do.
Thank you.
Education.
You talk education. So let's lay the basis here. First of all, this is from a comment that is on Facebook. Okay, Ben Brooks say, why bring back or digging out old souls? Right? So talking about, we play a song at the beginning of the show where Professor Jones Dopo say war is not good. And then we show an image of war. And also we are talking about peace. Ben is asking, if you are doing this, you are digging up old wounds. Tenen, is it what we are doing? Or can you talk to Ben?
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
So I'll address the concerns from Ben. So the thing with traumatic experiences, they're different from the way we deal with social experiences, the way we deal with other feelings of hurt. So a lot of times people think by avoiding it, you can move on. But as a country, as a society, that only serves as a trigger, by avoiding having to talk about this conversation, all you're doing is just setting a time bomb. So in the future, something happens, it escalates, and then we're back to where we've come from. So we're not dismissing that, people have been hurt, but even in the midst of all of it, we have to acknowledge firstly that yes, people were hurt. Secondly, that we provide the needed support, for the people. And that's a whole component within the TRC recommendation on who needs to, who and how that support needs to be provided. Excuse me, please. And then, to the more, unfortunately, all of it has become a contentious issue. So no, it is not a conversation that we need skip, move on with, and then suddenly, all of us can wear our lapas and pieces here, and we're back to normal. If you recall, a recent land crisis in Nimba County, there was this speaker who had threatened, right? Like, you people should know that we are here. We still have our old generals. That reference to old generals, should be considered. Why is he making that reference? It is all part of this conversation. Oh, let's move ahead, But then is this realization that there is this trigger. Understands what that means. He understands what that leads to. So by making mention of it, you're either instilling fear, or you're either stating, the power that you have to inflict harm on another person and get away with it. So it is layered. So these are the different reasons why we cannot skip this conversation on peace, on justice, on reconciliation. I mean, on all of the different issues that are centered around having Liberia a stable country.
Thank you. Massa, I have 1 minute to add to that before I go back to my next issue.
Yeah, sure. Actually, we have so many examples of why we should not keep silence on this national conversation, why we should be having it. So many examples. Sometimes, like someone murdered someone the other day most gruesomely. And then people were arguing, oh, he's a good person. He never harmed anybody before. He's a peaceful person. But then you take an axe and you bludgeon another person, to death. Where did that anger come from? A lot of pin-up anger inside of people, maybe a lot of us. And we know very well that any country that is coming from the kind of conflict that Liberia is trying to emerge from, there are a lot that needs to be done to help the country in its reconstruction, including reconstruction of the person, of the individuals, their psychological well-being, and all of that. Now you have people, the TRC recommended, there's several ways that we can help people move on. So when we have the discussion, we're not only having this discussion because we are mean people, we want people to be punished per se, but we want Liberians to pay attention to do the right things. But for example, we have other recommendations like memorialization that people are still sitting on, reparation. When you have when you implement recommendations like memorialization, what you do is you tell the victims that you recognize their pain. You realize that something terrible happened to them, and you record. So you validate their pain, and then you say to them, we do not only recognize that you have been hurt, but we want to make sure that we as a society has a reminder so that we don't do this again. So society collectively will put up memorials in appropriate places, sometimes with the names of victims of that place, or sometimes a counting of whatever is appropriate, so that every time we as a society, we see those memorials, we are reminded of where we were, and we are reminded, no, we cannot go back there.
Thank you.
Yes. So, we have to address these things. If not, we're not going to move forward. We're not.
Thank you. And that's the meat we're coming to now as to why and how. So from what I'm hearing, the basis for the question is peace possible. You're saying yes, it's possible, but we are not there yet. So I want to know why and how do we get there. But let's start with the why. I go back to Tenen. Why are we having these issues? I know you touch on, both of you touch on them. I want us to kind of put more meat on it.
So Dennis, can I come in, or was it Tenens?
Yeah, go ahead, Madam Washington. You have it. Just
okay. So you asked the why first, right, Dennis?
Yeah, why?
So in addressing myself to the why, there's several reasons why we have not been able to move forward more peacefully as a people. One, our nation is polarized. We were polarized on all fronts. We polarized on the basis of our ethnicity. We're polarized on the basis of a class. We still have a class system. In fact, I kind of figured now that the class system is even, I think, is much more higher now than tribal polarization, or maybe, the running competition. But so we're polarized. We are polarized on all of that. And now we are polarized on the basis now of the haves and the have now. We have no middle class anymore. Liberia, the middle class was completely wiped out. So you have now people who have, and the other people who do not have. So we are so polarized on the basis of this. And when you have a society that is not just, where the disparity is so wide between all these different categories, you are bound. It's a conflict-prone society. Never mind that we've had this conflict. We are not doing anything honestly, sincerely, and in a committed way to address the antecedents of our conflicts. Like, for example, the TRC or recommendations have made several recommendations that really do address the antecedents of our conflict. We're not addressing those. It's simple. I always tell people it's simple, example. If you are married in a home and maybe one partner misbehaved, maybe you disrespected your husband, he's not happy about it, and you're not speaking for 1 or 2 days. If you're a smart woman, you're going to find the time to cook him maybe his favorite food. You try to pet him, you try to rub his head or whatsoever, and you apologize. It's a form of apology. You have to be serious. You have to show some form of remorse, because when you show remorse, when you put in mechanism that recognizes that you have done wrong and that validates the victims, it goes a long way. We have people in our lives who have done some of the most unspeakable things to us that we thought no other professional, other people would do. But they reach out and you say, you know what? It happens in human relations. But we have not had any of this happen. There has been the TRC recommended that the country has a national recognition program, recognition of the wrong during the war, and recognition and validation of the victims. We have not had that yet. So imagine people think that, oh, why should Eddie Johnson Sirleaf apologize for the war? Why should George Weah apologize for the war? He was not fighting. No. You are not apologizing to the nation because you kill people or you are the person who did wrong. You're apologizing because you are the leader and you are setting the basis for how you want things to go. Then it's the leadership of anything, whether an organization or in this case, the national leadership, okay, is the biggest piece of this puzzle that can make it happen or not make it happen. Our leadership, we have not been blessed after the war. We have not been blessed with the kinds of leadership that are committed to peace and reconciliation, that are committed to the rule of law, and that are committed to justice. If you have a leader like Paul Kagame with all his issue and stuff, if you have a leader who says, you know what, we got to sort out this issue of justice. We got to, let's look at those recommendations that will really enhance the peace and let's implement them. But it's all politics at their own level and in their own way. So we need to come back. We need to recognize that something happened here. We have not recognized as a nation. We have not even admitted that something terrible happened to us as a nation. You have to first admit that something terrible happened, that some of us did wrong. And then you come back, then you validate the victims, and then you start putting mechanisms in place. And then those people who can go to the Palawa hut, they can go to the Palawa hut, and our people are magnanimous. The way we know the ordinary Liberian, they can go to the Palawa house rather and unveil themselves. And I'm sure the Liberian people will forgive them and bring them back into the society. None of that has happened. It's one of the biggest why we are stuck in neutral.
Thank you. Ms. Dalieh? Same question.
So we need to start out from the beginning of this, the nation Liberia, which was in the TRC report. The foundation of our state is complex and unfortunately has led us to where we are, but then within the scope of the TRC, so we've skipped over a century of abuse, of impunity, of corruption. And, one day it's like, okay, let's start off at this point and have a conversation around it. Be as it may, we're not going back into what could have happened. Be as it may, we still have impunity lingering, and it is shameful, as I would put it, people go like, oh yeah, the other people did it, what they do, and this tone, is seen within, unfortunately, the judiciary that should be as independent as can be, so the judiciary that should be, educate the one that's even re-echoing this, or when the other people were there, when they were doing what they do. Now we're here, post 14 years civil conflict, we're here. Liberia, peaceful country, we've not been able to address our history, our identity. So a colleague and I just published a paper on, our history, our identity, on how can this, bicentennial celebration be, the starting point, as a recognition. So when you hear the framing of this bicentennial celebration, the year of return of who? Who's returning? And that framing places this, like the geopolitical landscape of the country, the nation state Liberia started once some people met what happened, pre-independence, who were here, what were they doing, there's a whole debate around it. Madam Washington talked about polarization around, identity and all of it. Who we are as first the Liberians, who are we? These are core issues we've not addressed as a country. The TRC report mentioned that we should rewrite our history, because the national emblems, they're problematic. The love of liberty brought us here. Now we're reinforcing it with the year of return. So there are certain people who really don't count. There are certain people who, pain, who abuse and everything, can be dismissed because we are the ones. Yeah, we are the legitimate ones. You're reinforcing this, right, with the omission of history. When we say we want war crimes courts, when we say we want universal jurisdiction where other, foreign jurisdiction can punish people for crimes in our country, what we are saying is we are enabling a process that will help us document what actually happened, who was where, who participated in what, as part of the different, transitional processes. All of it, we're saying, oh no, no. And the last time I was on your program, we had a conversation with, the Senate and the National Legislature on attempt at, redoing all of what has happened. They're making wide claims that there was some national survey that went on and Liberian people said we want retributive justice, whatever that would mean within their understanding. And then it says, oh, let's just leave everything, throw away the documentation, throw away the history, throw away everything, and we should go to a national process that would be manipulated. So if you're asking why, these are the different reasons why we are far from, realizing this peace, this tranquility, as a nation. We could go further. She touched on memorialization. What we're seeing in our country, right? There are national places where the soldiers were killed at the barracks behind there. There's been a groundbreaking ceremony to redo and have something else. I'm sitting and looking through the papers of this bicentennial celebration, and there's a remodeled ship that should look like Elizabeth, and I'm like, okay, yeah, 200 years from now, that will be the same thing. People will go and try to remodel what looked like, a place where our politicians or our leaders were killed, and like, this is what it would have looked like. Instead of making a deliberate attempt to say, in the spirit of national healing, in the spirit of recognition, in the spirit of validating what happened, no one is saying you should, say I am the one who killed. Definitely, you're not incriminating yourself. But as a leader, you're recognizing that there was a wrong done in this place.
Yeah.
And we are going to address this wrong. You're omitting all of it, yet you're making an attempt to celebrate a history that happened 200 years when there's, even a history bigger than that. So these are all the different problems. These are all the different things that are wrong with, what we call Liberia, with the government and everything. we can go move forward with how and what now needs to be done.
Thank you, Tenen. Let me stop you right there. Miss Washington will have to leave, so we'll get her pattern comments so she can leave because of another schedule.
Yeah, sure. So let me just add to and then hopefully, Dennis, I'm pleading to you to extend this conversation to another time when Tenen and when Aaron are available. I will try to make myself available, but this cannot be the end of this conversation because there's just so much to discuss here. But let me just part with this. You asked about the why. Let me just tell you some of the why and maybe perhaps the most important why. So you have our leaders who, because of their own culpability, have manipulated the process of law and order accountability or what have you. For example, the TRC Act says in the Article 10 of the TRC Act under recommendations for reporting requirement, how the report of the TRC should go. That is how the implementation. So it says the president shall every quarterly be invited by the national legislature to give them an update on the president's own efforts at implementing the recommendations of the TRC. So the first time President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf ever, she went to the legislature one time, and in 2015, she actually wrote the national legislature, though, instead of going to give an update on progress she's making to implement the report as per the TRC Act, which is law, she actually wrote the national legislature and asked them to give her own advice in the way forward for the implementation of the TRC report. So that was a clever shenanigan for her to not do what she was supposed to do under the law. That was just one example. Then come 2019, President George Weah when he went to the United Nations, he was asked to give a status report on the status of the implementation of the TRC. When he came back, he wrote the national legislature again, monkey see, monkey do, taking cue from Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. He wrote the national legislature, asking them to again advise him on the way forward for implementation of the report. Again, he ceded his own authority and his own responsibility. So what did the national legislature do? Mind you do, Weah is asking, he's giving the responsibility to implement the report to a legislature that has Prince Johnson as a senator at the time. He was chairing the committee on the peace and security. So Prince Johnson is there, George Bode is there, Maurice Etuma, who is in the TRC report for economic crime, is there, Fanny Sherman, who is not in the TRC report but who has been sanctioned and who is saying that let bygones be bygones, he does not want accountability, is there. So you have all these people who are named in the report in a big way as bearing the greatest responsibility, all to the legislature that President Weah writes and send the TRC report and say, hey, yeah, you decide, you tell me what to do about it. So what did they do? It was a Senate leadership committee. They sat down together, they came up with this bogus a proposal for a transitional justice assembly, like Tenen said, kick out the entire TRC process. The millions of dollars that were spent, the volumes and volume of work. Imagine the TRC held 800 hearings. 800 hearings the TRC held. Okay, and then the report came out in several volumes, in 6 volumes. The main volume of the report is 470 pages. All that volume of work, international goodwill, throw everything out because Prince Johnson then, no, they don't like the TRC. Let's start our own transitional justice thing. And what makes it, this is my last point, what makes it even more awful and disappointing is that you have few legislators who are on the side of justice and accountability. Like you have this young legislator or this young girl, Swakoko. So she was leading an effort to try to get other legislators to support the recommendations for, the implementation of the TRC. So she was able, out of 73 legislators, she was able to get 51 of them to sign, which is I think more than the 2/3 that they needed, right? So she has 51 signatures. She takes the petition and send it and give it to the speaker, Mr. Buffer Chambers, who was supposed to put it on the agenda and bring it on the floor of the parliament for them to discuss it. Guess what? The document disappears. It gets lost from Buffer Chambers' office, from the speaker office. So which country under the sun something like that happens? In this country, then as you know, that person would be impeached. They will go to jail. The speaker will go to jail. But up until now, the signatures of his colleague, honorable legislators, 51 of them, who agreed, for the implementation of the TRC recommendations. That entire petition, the document is lost. Up until now, nothing has happened about it. So these are some of the reasons why we where we are, why the peace process, why genuine peace, like I said, is full of obstacles and it's stuck in neutral. But I'll talk to you guys another time. I have to run, Tenen. Good to see you, sweetheart. Extend my greetings to you, Dennis. We'll talk again another time. I gotta go.
Thank you. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we're going to read some comments and hopefully take calls.
Focus on Liberia. We discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Tenen.
Welcome back to Focus on Liberia. We are discussing, is peace possible for Liberia? Let's take some of our readers' comments here, or viewers' comments. Dr. Edison Padua said, yes, peace is possible in Liberia. Peace will only be an impossibility when we make people to think that they have no control over what is happening to them. They will then continue to see unrelated and threatening patterns in their lives and give it to conspiracy theories. Adman Salif, a free, pluralistic society where there is respect for the rule of law, where opportunities abound for all indiscriminately, where social, economic, and cultural growth and holistic development thrive, a happy, free people whose rights are conferred and respected are at peace and thus can enjoy the full realization of their potentials. That's Edmund defining peace there. Edison comes back and say, war begins in the hearts of men, and it is in the hearts of men that the foundation of peace must be planted. I believe strongly that a generation that did not see and feel the Civil War, and not necessarily the one that started the war, will bring about lasting peace. This obviously will transcend the lifespan of the warlords and their followers. Oh, and then let me put in the last comment, you respond, and then we'll go to our callers. This one is from Joseph Koyani Paul. After the American Civil War, did they bring anybody to war crimes court? But today, America is moving on and is an advanced economic power today in the world. Tenen, you are shaking your head. You feel sorry?
Yeah, I think it's, the lack of knowledge.
Okay, let me read the last comment, then you respond to our comments. Isa Kofa, tribalism has compromised the Liberian people's mind until we acknowledge the fact that our forefathers gave up too early on our country's future dreams because they assumed the illiterates were too many to be educated. What? We are lazy and hateful set of citizens. All right.
Yeah.
Ms. Dalieh, your response to those few comments.
Okay, so I just pick up from where someone was trying to infer about tribalism as some of the issues. So we keep talking about identity. There's nothing wrong with people owning their ethnic identity or tribal identity. People should be proud of it. People should own it. However, what we have to talk about is how this part of us have been used and exploited by warlords, by politicians, and all of it. So I'll go to a little technical. Collier asks about civil conflict, and he says it's more around greed than it's with grievance. However, they use grievance as a narrative, to have people own and participate in these conflicts, you know. But the core issue around it is for greed, is the economic, is the political, you know, stuff that comes with war. So within the context we see, we had our issues, we had ethnic, social issues, we had economic issues in Liberia until towards the end, 1980, moving, you know, into the 90s. So politicians realized that in order to perpetuate, you know, this horrendous act of, you know, abuse or crimes and whatever, we needed to have people own this, you know. So it became a war, a tribal war. My people, you know, this is an attack against us, this identity. And if you think of ethnic and tribal identity, people own it much more than they will own, you know, their social identity. You know, even their, you know, the next part of it is the religious one. But the first is closest to people is the, you know, ethnic identity. I am this tribe. This is who I am, you know. And then moving forward, people like, you know, before you hear people say, oh, I'm a Christian, I am, you know. Yes. So this has been exploited. And this is what, as Liberians, we have to move away from. There's nothing wrong being, I'm a global woman, always will be. And I appreciate being, you know. And I mean, in the future, my children are not going to be Grable because, you know, it's something else. The point is, we still will, you know, coexist within our differences. We will coexist. So there's nothing wrong. However, what remains problematic is, you know, even in our indifferences, you know, is allowing this, oh, I am this tribe, I am from here, I am, you know, as a way to perpetuate the I mean, the situation. I try to, you know, skip using words that, you know, our people keep using and framing, you know, to have people think, oh yes, this is it, you know, this is it. Even if you listen to the radio, you hear it, you know, okay, this, or this, okay, no, okay, back to the point. What can we as Liberians do? What can we, and the onus is on all of us, beginning with the media, you know. So in academia, where I am, we're supposed to be the thinkers. We're supposed to be the ones who will write, who will think, who would, you know, provide education. However, the media also plays a crucial role. What is the message we're sending? You know, do we conveniently talk about these issues, you know, only when it fits within the narrative or what we want to talk about, you know, and in other instances we just skip it, you know. I tell you for a fact, I've reached out to some radio stations, like, you know, as part of my PhD program. Can we talk around transitional justice? And they're like, no, you know, that's a tense issue for us to talk about. If the media is censoring itself, you know, because talking about war issues will open the wounds, will open the scars, what then are we talking about, you know?
Yeah.
How are we then trying to educate this new generation, you know, Madam, Mr. Jai, in our close there for your next question. When we have these conversations, what we're trying to do is step away, step aside, find a midpoint, the realization that what happened as a people, this is what we are doing moving forward, you know. This is how we will handle our conversation. You know, there's no problem in competing. There's no problem in having agreements. The problem is trying to, you know, undermine. The problem is trying to take away from another person. The problem is trying to, you know, create a brawl. All of it, that is the problem. There's no problem in having conversation. The problem is trying to use this, you know, as a tool to just perpetuate itself and perpetuate this whole conversation around abuse, perpetuate harm, you know, in some other instances.
So the next comment I wanted you to respond to is about the American Civil War. He said there was no war crime code in the American Civil War and they're doing well.
No, I try to skip that, you know. So
All right.
countries like America, countries like you know, so the more one, I mean, people in America, they also know about Germany, the Nazis, and all of it. They had independent judiciary. Their judiciary was stronger, you know. So if you look at conversations on international criminal law now as it is, you know, so there's this whole literature on post Nuremberg, and it talks about, it follows through the different, you know, trials, the processes after the Nazi, the war, and all of it. Those people were brought justice. Their legal system. And in other instances, what they did was have lawyers from America, there were lawyers from the UK who all sat, you know. So there was this recognition that, you know, gross human rights abuse happened and people will be brought to justice. I mean, the last recent person who was tried like 15 years ago, they're about 15, 20 years. 10 years ago. I'm sorry, I'll look it up for another time. But they follow up through the different processes. You know,
Right.
America happened a long time, but still they follow up through their different processes. Even at this point, right? America is not without its flood, but people know that if this particular crime happened, when I go to the judiciary, I am going to get justice. Do we have that confidence in Liberia?
No, the answer is no. And Tenen, one more thing before you come out. Here's another thing. Stephen Sly is saying, I wonder why we talk about peace and at the same time talk about establishing war crimes court. Can someone tell me how these two things will work together? This is an opportunity for you to talk to our brother.
There's a correlation. One leads to the other. So we keep talking about impunity. One of the reasons why we are still where we are is because we've allowed abuse, crimes, and everything to flourish. And it's only the courts that can deal with these issues. So while war crimes court, the acts of violence that happen in Liberia, you know, cannot be classified or cannot fall under murder, you know, like you say, oh, there was an intention to kill. It's greater than that. So these acts of violence, these horrendous acts of violence cannot, you know, be dealt with in our national, I mean, judiciary. And also because, again, we know that our judiciary is not independent, you know, so it's a combination of all the different issues why we say war crimes court. So war crimes court establishes what happened, where, who, you know, the different acts of violence. And it's not just, you know, like I'm trying to mildly use MILD, mildly use the word acts of violence, but what happened in Liberia, the atrocities, you know, so using the right word, the atrocities that happen cannot be left with our judiciary as it is. It has to be dealt with within the war crimes court or quasi-judicial body, or however you want to place it. You know, I mean, just within the simple context, issue of rape, which, you know, we're still having conversations around it. You know, there are cases on the docket which cannot get to, you know, its final conclusion. So we're not even trying to burden the already problematic judiciary we have. That's why war crimes court, because at the end of the day, right, is an adjudication will say this happened at this time and this person is found guilty, or these people are found guilty of whatever, you know, and then they have to serve prison term for whatever they did. They have to serve.
Thank you. Let's go to our calls now. I have 3 callers here. Let's get them quickly, 1 minute each, and then we can conclude the broadcast. The first is Elvis Morris. Elvis, you're live. Question or comment, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Jad. I wanted to make a quick comment and then ask a question.
Okay.
For example, let's take a quick look at Nigeria, for example. You saw what happened with the Biafra Civil War. You know, the Igbo still felt like it was unfairly treated, and even up to now, they're still agitating to separate from that country. So just to kind of get to the point that transitional justice is very important. And I want to say this. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is the biggest obstructionist in our country's history to justice. I remember I was watching Babala's testimony the other day, and he asked the question, I think it was Commissioner Dalieh who answered him. He said, what happens if you take this report to the government and the government rejects it? And I think the commissioner said there was a mechanism in there that won't allow that to happen. And now looking back in hindsight, I think he was almost like prophetic in his question, because it shows that wrong person at the wrong time. That was Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. She could have made a big transformation in that country by allowing the TRC to be implemented. So I guess my question, I really wanted to ask this to former Commissioner Massa Washington, but I think she's already left. But I guess I could just ask it to your current guest. What role did the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government play in not implementing our TRC report, and what responsibility can we hold that former government to? Because I think without her implementing it, this is why we have the problems that we have today. Thank you for taking my call, Mr. Jack.
Thank you, Evis. Let me take 2 more calls here. The next one is Camus. Camus, go ahead, you're live.
Yeah, Mr. Jack, thank you so much. And I just want to appreciate our guest, Anna, and I appreciate you very much. This show, I always follow you. You always bring in brilliant Liberian women. You know, I'm so proud and happy about the position and thing on these cases. And then I also like to say that, you know, it's like people giving you a task as a Tenen, execute yourself, give you the knife, cut your own throat. That's the whole Liberian situation there. These players are the ones that stay in power. They're never going to execute whatever result come out of PRC or TRC and the rest of it. I will tell you a short story just before we go. There's a girl I know, a woman now. She was 11 years old. This fighter went in the village, and ran all the men, including her father, the men and his brothers, all his brothers. I think I'm correct. I stand to be correct on the number she gave. I think 35 or 36 men in Riverside in a village, and they slaughtered every one of them. This girl today, she does not have a father. She was 11 years old. Her mother died right after that incident. Just been gone Memorial Day when I called her, that girl was crying. She does not have parents. And she's been going through what she's going through. And she knows the perpetrator. He's very motivated, walking up and down. Those are the situation. You know, it's like somebody beat you, then they say, don't cry. That's why they're talking about let that be. So I like how the lady put it nicely, and Miss Washington always say that. So that's my contribution. Thank you, and thank you for focus on Africa. Continue to bring all the brilliant Liberian women, and call my favorite on the African program you always have in there, you know. So I thank you so much, and thank you, my sister or my daughter, Tenen. I appreciate you. I love you all. My heart out for you.
Thank you so much for calling, Mr. Kemo. Let me bring our last caller, Aliu Samba Kamara.
Yeah, some people like to refer to him as controversial, Aliu, and I don't think I'm controversial, actually.
No, I don't think so, too.
Yeah, great program. I couldn't help but stick around to listen to these women articulate with such you know, intelligence and people who really understand the issue. She said something that I took something on, a few things. I agree with all of the things she said. She said something about avoiding the issue or skipping the issue, and she reminded me of my college days. One of the worst principles in sociology that they always teach you, we have to write a whole paper about that. It's called the avoiding principle. The avoiding principle is the
Speak a little louder, Aliu. Get some energy.
So, let me move from behind the desk. I don't want to make noise.
Okay.
Okay, let me get out of the office completely. Sorry about that.
Okay,
yeah,
go on.
So
yeah, you're good now. No, we heard what
okay, good. So you heard what I said, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So great. So
Yeah, so she's right. There's no way you can have conflict resolution by avoiding the issues. You cannot have a proper conflict resolution without accountability, and some people are actually paying for their action. That both parties has to be satisfied. The person who carried out the act will feel free when they have accounted for the act that they carry out. The person who the act was carried out against might not be all the way happy, but that person will be satisfied to a degree that at least somebody recognized and they were seen as some human being in the process. So it's very important to attack the issues, and people must be accountable for their action. Now there was a statement about, people talking about their heroes. Yes, but you have to understand that as those people who are talking about their heroes are also calling for the War and Economic Crimes Code. There were census done in Nimba County. The Nimbayan themselves overwhelmingly agreed for war and economic crimes to come to Nimba County, even in the midst of supporting Prince Wise Johnson. So, and even the Madingo people who supported Alhaji Nkrumah, they said they supported Alhaji Nkrumah because at the time, Alhaji Nkrumah was needed. But in the process of defending his people, if somebody violated the UCMJ or any Geneva Convention, that person should answer. And so the people unanimously agreed for war and economic crimes. So let me just say thank you for the show. I appreciate that. It was great, and I listened to some real good stuff. Thank you so much, Tenen.
You're right, and I saw your comments there. I see I'm not even going to read it because Ali is talking crazy stuff here. All right, Tenen, your response to the callers.
So I begin with the one, where he asks who's responsible. I try to get away from this guilt by association, where we say all of us are responsible. All of us in Liberia participated in the war. All of us in Liberia contributed, by our actions and inactions. Those are all wrong and problematic framing. The TRC report mentioned those who are responsible, beginning with our relationship, with the U.S. as it is. They've had, their parts, to play in it, and all of it, to now where we are with Liberians themselves, So if you read the report, you'll see who are responsible. Right. Is Madam Sirleaf principally responsible for that? That would be.
Tenen, let me rephrase that question. What he was asking is, what role did Madam Sirleaf play in stopping the implementation of the TRC report, and what culpability can she bear for that since she did it, or if she did it?
Yes, so I mean it's the same thing.
I thought you said responsible for the war. Go ahead,
the war, the implementation, Mr. Jah. I understood what he was saying.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to, give it ready here, because what he's trying, why the intention of the question is to say, oh, Madam Sirleaf is this, and X, Y, and Z. Madam Sirleaf participated in the conflict by and large, as was mentioned by the TRC report. However, we've not had a process that would have her account for her involvement. To what extent, it was an admittance at the TRC that she gave former President Taylor $10,000 for, MPFL was not a humanitarian group. They were in active combat. She saw them. She participated in conversation, So I'm trying to, skip from that. When all of this happened, Madam Sirleaf being named in a report for lustration, so lustration is being banned 30 years. So in economic theory is also psychology theory, there's this framing around that says people rational choice theory. So people make choices that benefit them. So even if there's 1,000 people that it would do good for, is going to undermine them, they will skip it and would go for the option that suits them. That was exactly what Sirleaf did. Sirleaf protected herself. Was she right? Was she wrong? This is why we need a process, and that process would be, as we're saying, a war crimes court, that would make her account for whatever her role was. And it's within the confines of the law that would say, Sirleaf, this is the extent, this is the extent your involvement, and this is how, we're proceeding. I do not have the capacity to make that judgment, I do not have the capacity to say, oh, because, or you undermined. I can only say some of what she's done, which I've mentioned, by giving certificates to warlord, maintaining the peace, for noting a participant at a national conference on peacekeeping process, who signed on behalf of a warring faction, but several other things, and it is the same with President Sirleaf. It is the same with the people at the national legislature. It is the same with people at executive, legislative positions. Every single person who was named in the TRC report have had different ways to undermine. Currently, where we are, we see Bernard Ray, Emmanuel Shaw, who were named in the report. They're also finding means and ways to undermine the different processes, So we cannot, we all can, continue to have this blame game. Who did not do, who did not do, or forward with the conversation. We need this, we have to do this. And if you read the TRC report, one of what they had mentioned was that the diaspora community has a huge burden of also contributing to the peace. So what can this diaspora community do? They had mentioned that there should be some financial contributions made, towards the different peace processes or post the democratization process. But also, how can we elevate this conversation? What people who are in positions have got their networks. How do you want to elevate this conversation around national reconciliation, around accountability? That burden is also on people within the diaspora. So all of us can, find a way to escape this blame game and moving forward. Else, Sirleaf will be gone and we'll still be blaming her. We see the people there, all people who contributed, hugely in impacts to the war, they're leaving without facing justice. They're living without accounting for their wrongs. We could go on with this blame game, and none of the, main actors of the conflict will be around to actually, address their role in the conflict. The time is now to have a conversation. The time is now to, follow up with the different processes. The time is now to have these people account for their conscious civil conflict.
Thank you so much. Tonight at 6, we're going to have the literary hour. The literary hour with Jackie Saya and Dr. K. Moses Nambwe comes on this evening at 6 p.m. You don't want to miss it. The topic, hope, expectation, and meaningless waiting for good at. So please tune in. Tenen, thank you so much for joining us. It's unfortunate that Aaron could not join us, but Aaron, we're going to definitely do this again. Let me get your parting comments as we draw down the curtains. Again, thanks for coming.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Jack. It's always a pleasure, and I love to, Mr. Weah here. He's extremely knowledgeable. He's an expert. However, it would be a pleasure sharing the platform with him another time. My parting comment: peace is possible. It's possible, and we have to be intentional about how we, seek this peace. We have to be intentional on how we work towards, collaboratively work towards realizing and achieving this. So it starts with every one of us. Again, just on, where I left off from, we all can continue with this blame game. Oh, it was person Sirleaf, or it was this, or it was that, to all of us, contributing, from having conversations around and about it, to engaging with stakeholders, to forming, back in the day, we used to have these different talk talking points, right, within the community. So either every Friday or every Saturday, the community will converge and then talk. I mean, it's been too polarized. Now you have this Attainable talk place and blah blah blah, which is more of a shouting point. But we could reorganize around that and then have people really deliberate. How do we want to move forward? How do we hold these people accountable? 2023 is around the corner. Can we be intentional? Can we provide alternatives for these people, in leadership, so that we don't have our people re-electing these people with criminal records, only because their survival depend on them, So all of us can contribute. It's not only for transitional justice experts, transitional justice leaders or whatever it is, not only for scholars, like not the technical side of things. It can be a deliberate attempt that I will not participate in any process that would honor, this particular person, and the reason is he has a war record. I will not participate in any Mother Day ceremony for this woman because she has a war record. I will not sit in a class from someone who has a war record, because if you are listening to a teacher who participated in the conflict, what she's doing or what he is doing is, varying her knowledge, in most days a twisted side of it, So all of this, it has to be intentional. And then finally, we can, when all of this builds up at the national level, we all can move forward to say, this is how we see, and this is what we've agreed on as a country, as a people, and this is what we want, and have the national government move on around implementing different measures or different recommendations outlined in the TRC report. Thank you very much for having me, Mr. Jah. Thanks to all who listen. I greatly appreciate.
And thank you so much for always picking up the phone to answer the call and come here. We really, really appreciate what you are doing, the contribution you and your colleagues are making to Liberia. Again, a quick run through here. Sunday is the Justice Forum, the Courts of Liberia, Part 1. That we're going to be discussing civil and criminal courts. And on Saturday, we'll be here, the Liberian History Channel. We're going to be talking about why and how the Republic was established. And Tuesday, that's next week, revenue generation and job creation in the mining sector, the case of ArcelorMittal. My guest is Dr. Kaman Malabar. He's going to be here. He worked with the he worked with the Bong Mining Company. Yeah, that's the Bong Mining Company, will be here. Again, want to thank our viewers for always staying here with us at Focus on Liberia. At this time, we're going to close with our song that says, whether you're in favor of transitional justice, whether you support war crimes court or not, we are all Liberians. And all we need to do is to do our very best to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Enjoy your Friday and a nice weekend.
We all are